Hey guys! Today we're diving into another truly horrifying case. If you want to support my channel, make sure to subscribe and stay active. It really helps me out. I'd be super grateful for that. Let's get started. September 28th, 2022, Chifa Alexandra Restaurant. A quiet evening, a relaxed atmosphere, peaceful conversations filling the air. Then, everything changed in a flash. A scream, panic, red stains on the tablecloth. One of the guests didn't make it out alive. Shirley Silva, a young woman with a troubled past, did something unimaginable. But how did it happen? What pushed her over the edge? Was she a heartless criminal or someone driven to the brink by circumstances? Shirley Silva was born in 1996 in Esperanza, a neighborhood in the port city of Callao, Peru, known as one of the most underprivileged areas in the region. From the very start, her environment shaped her reality. In a place where the weak didn't stand a chance, survival meant learning to fight, literally, from a young age. Her family was emblematic of the hardship surrounding them. Raised by a single mother with 11 sons and daughters, Shirley grew up in a household struggling to survive. There were no father figures. Their modest means came from odd jobs, street vending, and activities that often skirted the edge of legality. Meals depended on whatever could be found, but hunger and scarcity were a constant part of daily life. They lived in a makeshift shack patched together with plywood and corrugated metal. It had no plumbing, unreliable electricity, and a leaky roof. Outside, the streets were ruled by local gangs, illegal dealings, and an ever-present atmosphere of danger. People didn't ask questions when someone vanished. Disappearances were simply a part of the norm. This was the world Shirley grew up in, mistrusting others and feeling emotionally detached. From an early age, she showed signs of aggressive behavior and emotional coldness. In play, she was domineering, demanding obedience, and using physical force when challenged. Her family noticed troubling patterns. Her younger brother's tears would make her laugh, and her mother's exhaustion never seemed to stir any concern in her. Teachers in elementary school described her as withdrawn and unpredictable. She avoided interacting with classmates, often triggered confrontations, and reacted to criticism with either hostility or complete indifference. She showed little interest in learning, lacked empathy, and wasn't curious about the world around her. Disciplinary actions didn't deter her. In fact, her behavior only escalated. As Shirley grew older, it became increasingly clear. She didn't form emotional bonds, not with her family, not with anyone. Even her mother, despite relentless efforts, couldn't reach her. But Shirley learned something early on. Fear equals control. She began to manipulate her younger siblings, using threats and humiliation to get her way. This wasn't a defense mechanism. It was a calculated tactic to exploit the weaknesses of others. At home, she kept her distance emotionally, but she wasn't idle. Her behavior was far from unusual for Esperanza, where only those who could suppress emotions and act in their own interest stood a chance at making it. Her coldness wasn't viewed as a problem. It was seen as a sign of strength. In a place where survival was the only goal, Shirley's toughness marked her as someone who might eventually make it out, or at least avoid being forgotten on the sidelines. But instead of breaking free from her surroundings, Shirley became a reflection of them. The environment didn't just shape her, it created her. No adult ever stepped in to redirect her path. By the time she was a teenager, Shirley wasn't just a troubled girl. She had become someone people started to fear. Calculated, unfeeling, and willing to push past any obstacle if it meant getting what she wanted. One day at school, a classmate made an offhand comment about her clothes. Shirley didn't argue. She pulled a blade and struck the girl in the shoulder. The classmate survived, But the incident sent shockwaves through the community. No one expected such a cold, deliberate act from someone her age over something so small. It wasn't a moment of impulse, it was a choice. After that, Shirley never returned to school. There wasn't any formal expulsion, no one pushed for her to come back. Her disappearance from the classroom went unnoticed. In her neighborhood, education wasn't a priority, and stepping away from school was seen as an expected outcome rather than a failure. With school behind her, Shirley started spending more time with her mother, who brought her into the world of informal street work. This wasn't employment in the traditional sense. These were occasional, unregulated jobs, selling cheap items on the sidewalk, collecting recyclables, and joining the street vendors hustling day to day. Eventually, her mother introduced her to a group of women involved in underground work tied to survival strategies many in the neighborhood relied on. Shirley didn't push back. She didn't ask questions. She accepted it all as normal. Her lack of emotional response extended beyond the situations she faced. It applied to people, too. The pain of others didn't affect her, and she didn't crave affection or approval. Her detachment wasn't a phase. It was who she had become. Life on the street hardened Shirley even more. What once showed up as basic hostility had now evolved into full-on dominance. It started with sharp words, then turned into threats, and eventually into physical intimidation. She wasn't afraid of men, didn't back down from confrontations, and if someone tried to take control over her, she responded fast and harshly. Shirley didn't engage in conversations, didn't open up, not even to her own mother. Her life became mechanical: earn money, complete a task, eliminate obstacles. Everything else, emotions, doubts, compassion, was pushed aside. Her interactions with the outside world existed only when absolutely necessary. Social isolation became her norm. Shirley didn't have close friends, and even acquaintances kept their distance. People who crossed paths with her on the street often described the same unsettling detail: her blank stare. She could be standing right next to someone, yet be completely checked out, unresponsive to either pleas or warnings. There was no fear in her, and that's what made her so unsettling. Freddy Ramirez had come to Peru from Venezuela, fleeing a collapsing economy and lack of opportunity. In Lima, he tried to build a new life, working as a cook, renting a room, keeping a low profile. Those around him often noted his friendly demeanor and quiet nature. Freddy wasn't confrontational. He avoided tension, compromised easily, and treated others with respect. These qualities earned him goodwill, but they also made him an easy target. His first encounter with Shirley seemed random. She just appeared, maybe in his favorite cafe, maybe on the street. Either way, it caught him off guard. Their connection was quick. Shirley was blunt, assertive, and knew how to take charge in conversation. Freddy, used to humility and gentleness, didn't see a red flag. He mistook her behavior for confidence and independence. At first, their relationship looked typical: casual meetings, chats, spending time together. But it didn't take long before control started creeping in. Shirley set the rules. She limited who Freddy could talk to, demanded obedience, and monitored his movements. She went through his phone, expected explanations for his time, and got involved in matters that weren't hers to control. Freddy tried to explain himself, to reason with her, to keep the peace, but each compromise only tightened her grip. With time, the relationship took a darker turn. What started as harsh words soon escalated into emotional outbursts, accusations of betrayal, threats to leave, and then physical confrontations. One of the earliest serious incidents happened when Freddy didn't answer her call. Shirley struck him in the face, splitting his lip. Freddy never told anyone. He didn't fight back, didn't file a complaint. didn't even mention it to those close to him. He chalked it up to an emotional breakdown and hoped it would never happen again. But it did, more than once. Their arguments became more intense, more unpredictable. She would suddenly accuse him of disrespecting her, of being unfaithful, then grab a kitchen knife and threaten him. On one occasion, she held a blade to his throat. Another time, she hit him on the back of the head with a frying pan. Freddie sought medical attention more than once, but each time he explained the injuries away as accidents. No police reports were ever filed. Their breakups became a recurring cycle. Freddie would try to walk away, turning off his phone and disappearing for a few days. But Shirley always found him. She would show up unannounced, banging on windows, shouting, creating scenes in public. Sometimes he returned on his own, clinging to hope for a fresh start. Other times, fear drove him back, fear born from her threats that no one else would ever be with him if he left her. And he believed that. To those around him, Freddie remained polite, but he was clearly changing. He shared less, kept his personal life tightly guarded. He hid his injuries. His co-workers noticed he had become anxious, that he laughed less, that he was sleeping poorly. Still, he showed up every day, doing his job with quiet determination. Freddie didn't see himself as a victim. He believed he was still in control. He thought he could change Shirley, help her see another way, bring peace through patience. But his efforts were in vain. By early fall of 2022, Shirley had all but taken over Freddie's life. He stopped trying to leave. He accepted that his existence was now dictated by her terms. In those final months, he simply tried to avoid setting her off, staying quiet, avoiding conflict. But that wasn't enough to save him. On the evening of September 28, 2022, Shirley Silva and Freddie Ramirez arrived at Chifa Alexandra, a modest Chinese-Peruvian restaurant in the La Victoria district, just outside central Lima. They took a seat near the back of the dining area. Other patrons were nearby, enjoying their meals. It was a typical night. Freddie appeared relaxed, eating calmly, chatting, showing no signs of distress. Shirley, on the other hand, was tense. She barely touched her food, spoke very little, and her face carried a stiff, distant expression. Her demeanor stood out, emotionless, detached, her eyes unfocused, locked on nothing in particular. Witnesses later described her as coldly composed, not angry or upset, just eerily quiet. There was no fight in the moments leading up to the crime, no yelling, no insults. According to surveillance footage and eyewitness accounts, Freddie continued eating peacefully, unaware, while Shirley, without saying a word, pulled out a knife and began her attack. There were a total of 8 stab wounds. The attack happened suddenly. The first strike landed on Freddie's neck, followed by blows to his chest and abdomen. It all took place in a matter of seconds. Freddie jumped up and tried to move away, but more strikes followed. He collapsed near the counter, bleeding heavily. Panic broke out. Some guests screamed, others tried to pull Shirley away, but by then she had already stepped back. The entire restaurant was thrown into chaos. Several customers ran out into the street. Staff members called emergency services and law enforcement. One of the guests tried to help Freddie, but his condition was already critical. When medical responders arrived, they confirmed he had not survived. Shirley didn't run. She stood near the entrance, watching the aftermath with a calm, blank expression. Witnesses would later say she looked neither scared nor confused. Her face remained unreadable. Moments later, she walked out of the restaurant at a normal pace, without rushing and without any attempt to hide. After the incident, Shirley headed toward the central bus terminal. She didn't try to disguise herself, didn't dispose of the weapon, didn't take any steps to avoid being found. Later, It was confirmed she simply hailed a cab and left. The attack on Freddie was cold, calculated, and devoid of panic. Her behavior before, during, and after pointed to complete control and a total absence of emotional hesitation. Once she left the restaurant, Shirley wandered through the city, walked into shops, and past strangers. She had no clear plan for escape. She was simply looking for someone she could turn to. That someone turned out to be Francisco, an acquaintance she'd occasionally been in touch with. Francisco saw her about 2 hours after the incident. The moment he laid eyes on her, he sensed something was wrong. She was composed and spoke very little. Then she told him directly. She had taken someone's life. He didn't believe her at first. So Shirley showed him an article online. The news had already started to spread. The report mentioned Freddie's name, a knife, and confirmed he hadn't survived. Francisco was stunned. A bit later, Francisco suggested recording a video. Shirley agreed. He turned on the camera and asked her a direct question. She didn't hesitate. Yes, I did it. He deserved it. The video wasn't long, but the message was crystal clear. After that, they went to a hotel together. Shirley rented a room and ordered drinks. Inside, she acted like everything was normal, drinking, smoking, talking casually. Francisco watched her closely, unsure what to do next. He felt uneasy, but Shirley showed no signs of aggression toward him. She was just there, silent at times, speaking in fragments. Several hours later, Francisco made a decision. He contacted law enforcement and reported Shirley's location. By that point, the authorities were already actively searching for her. Witness statements and security footage had helped narrow down her possible whereabouts. Francisco provided the exact address of the hotel without informing Shirley that he had made the call. Around 8 a.m., officers arrived at the location. The arrest was made without incident. Shirley opened the door, looked at the officers, and didn't ask a single question. She didn't argue, didn't try to flee. She allowed herself to be handcuffed and quietly walked to the vehicle. The entire scene unfolded in front of hotel staff and a few bystanders. The reaction was the same across the board. No one could believe that this was the same young woman responsible for such a violent crime. After her arrest, Shirley was taken to the police station. There, too, she remained completely calm. She didn't deny what had happened, didn't request legal counsel, and didn't ask for any clarification. She confirmed her identity and stated that she understood why she had been detained. In the initial report, officers noted that she displayed no emotional reaction, no signs of distress, and appeared fully composed. And so, less than 12 hours after the crime, Shirley Silva was in custody. Those 12 hours were the only brief stretch of freedom between the act and her arrest. During that time, there had been no panic, no remorse, just a chilling sense of detachment. Following her arrest, Shirley was transferred to the Lima Criminal Investigation Unit. She spent her first hours in holding, awaiting interrogation. Officers who interacted with her all noted the same thing, an eerie absence of emotion. To document her psychological state, an official video recording of the interrogation was made. In the footage, Shirley sits upright, her hands folded, her voice steady. The investigator asks her again, "Do you regret what you did?" Her response, "No. I don't feel anything." Her tone is flat. Her face shows no tension, no hesitation. The statement is logged into the official record. Her demeanor is classified as emotionally disengaged, deeply inconsistent with the severity of the offense. Investigators were eager to understand the motive. Since Shirley chose to remain silent, the investigation relied heavily on testimonies and collected evidence. The focus quickly shifted to her relationship with Freddie. At first, theories revolved around jealousy or financial disputes, but soon, new witness accounts emerged, painting a very different picture. Freddie's co-workers, neighbors, and acquaintances provided consistent reports of both physical and psychological mistreatment. One of the kitchen staff recalled Freddie showing up to work with visible bruises. Another remembered the day Freddie asked to sleep at the cafe, afraid to go home. A former neighbor said she had heard yelling, threats, and loud banging coming from their apartment. It later came to light that Shirley had once stabbed Freddie in the arm, not fatally, but deep enough to cause significant bleeding. At the time, Freddie claimed it was an accident. Medical staff treated the injury, but no report was filed with law enforcement. The incident was later documented and added to the case file. Investigators also confirmed that just days before the attack, Freddie had once again tried to end the relationship. He moved out, changed his phone number, and avoided all contact. But Shirley found him. She insisted on meeting. By that point, Shirley had already made a decision, one she carried out at that dinner table. Psychological experts brought into the case conducted an evaluation of her mental state. Preliminary findings pointed to emotional dissociation, an absence of empathy, a disregard for social norms, and an inability to feel guilt. Shirley was found to be mentally competent, but showing signs of antisocial personality traits. She knew what she was doing and fully understood the consequences. When investigators asked again, why a public place? Why in front of witnesses? Shirley answered, I didn't care. She didn't see the people around her as a deterrent, and their reactions didn't concern her. Her statements were direct, unaltered, and delivered with conviction. The investigation concluded that the crime stemmed from prolonged, one-sided aggression, systematic control and emotional pressure that Shirley exerted over the victim. Shirley Silva's case instantly became a national story. A violent act in a crowded restaurant captured on camera, followed by a public confession, drew enormous attention. Major news outlets quickly ran detailed reports, focusing on the shocking nature of the event. Headlines highlighted the unusual profile of the accused, a young woman carrying out an act of extreme aggression in front of multiple witnesses with no sign of emotion. As the media storm grew, some outlets began capitalizing on the story. Talk shows, special reports, and eye-catching features followed. Interviews were conducted with neighbors, former acquaintances, and teachers who shared fragmented memories of Shirley. Certain media narratives leaned into speculation, portraying her either as a cold-blooded figure or as a tragic product of an unforgiving environment. Social media amplified the divide. After interrogation footage, confession clips, and photos were made public, online reactions became increasingly polarized. Viewers split into two camps. Some condemned Shirley outright, calling her dangerous, emotionless, and prone to calculated cruelty. Others tried to frame her actions within a broader context: poverty, street life, lack of protection, and early trauma. They didn't excuse what happened, but their tone leaned toward empathy rather than judgment. As the media storm raged on, a new wave emerged, romanticizing Shirley's image. On platforms like TikTok and Instagram, clips began circulating with edited footage of her, set to emotional music and tagged with captions portraying her as the girl who was pushed too far. Some content creators used her likeness in stylized visuals, comparing her to iconic villains from popular films. Fan pages gained thousands of followers, posting aestheticized images of the accused. This triggered widespread backlash. While the accused was being elevated into a figure of fascination, the victim was largely forgotten. In the middle of this media frenzy, experts began analyzing what became known as the Shirley phenomenon. Journalists pointed to society's discomfort in viewing women as aggressors, especially in roles typically associated with men. Shirley's lack of visible emotion, No tears, no regret, no anxiety, challenged social expectations, and created a sense of unease. Analytical pieces emerged, framing her behavior from a sociological lens. Commentators explained that seeing a woman devoid of fear or remorse, speaking calmly and coldly, feels unnatural to many. That perception triggered both rejection and, paradoxically, admiration from audiences drawn to figures who defy norms. At the same time, a public debate unfolded around the ethics of turning an accused individual into a cultural symbol. Was it appropriate to aestheticize someone on trial for a violent crime? Journalists reminded the public of the central truth. At the heart of this story was a man who lost his life in front of witnesses. In response, efforts were made to redirect attention to Freddie. His photos, personal memories, and tributes began circulating online. The public conversation split in two. Meanwhile, media and internet culture analysts began to shift the focus from psychological assessments to how aggression is interpreted online. They noted that digital content quickly detaches from its original context. Instead of confronting the harsh reality of what happened, the public gravitated toward memes, video edits, and stylized imagery. This trend blurred the line between actual events and entertainment, distorting the gravity of what had taken place. As a result, the Shirley Silva case evolved beyond a criminal trial. It became a full-fledged social phenomenon. Her image was no longer grounded in facts, consequences, or the memory of the victim. It took on a life of its own in the digital space, shaped by likes, shares, and algorithm-driven attention. The trial of Shirley Silva began several months after her arrest. The prosecution presented a well-documented, thorough case. The charges were clear: a deliberate act carried out with premeditation using a concealed weapon in a public setting. The defense aimed to lessen her responsibility. Her attorney pointed to a difficult upbringing, harsh social environment, lack of support, and a history of traumatic relationships. The topic of Shirley's mental health was raised, but the court denied the request to revisit the already completed psychological evaluation. The prosecution pushed for the maximum sentence. They emphasized the severity of the crime, its deliberate nature, the complete lack of remorse, and the risk of future violence if she were ever released. They also referenced the widespread media attention and its potential impact on public perception, arguing that this only increased the social threat posed by the defendant. The trial itself was brief. Witness testimonies were consistent, and all critical facts were confirmed. The prosecution called restaurant employees, close friends of the victim, and Francisco, the man who ultimately turned Shirley in. His account of Shirley's calm and collected behavior the night of the crime played a significant role in demonstrating that her actions were not impulsive, but calculated. The verdict was delivered in a closed session. Shirley Silva was found guilty of premeditated murder. The court listed several aggravating factors: her lack of remorse, the nature of the act, and its public impact. She was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. News of the sentencing spread rapidly, sparking a fresh wave of online reactions. Some called the verdict fair and expected. Others questioned whether her background and impoverished past should have been considered mitigating factors. The debate continued, but the legal outcome was final. Shirley was convicted. She was transferred to a maximum security correctional facility. There, she was placed in a single cell with minimal interaction with other inmates and under close supervision. Her behavior remained consistent, quiet, controlled, and isolated. According to prison staff, she made no complaints, didn't request visits, and never asked for assistance. Her days began and ended in silence. Facility psychologists attempted to engage her in conversation, but just like before, Shirley had little to say. When asked whether she felt any regret, she simply said no, offering no further explanation. Her stance never changed. She made no plea for leniency and never sought a retrial. Her mental state was described as stable, but emotionally closed off. Shirley Silva's story didn't end in freedom, but it didn't vanish either. She remained a subject of public discourse, a symbol of controversy, a case study in media, and a rare precedent in criminal justice. Her name continued to appear in journalistic reports, online discussions, and academic analyses. Although the case was officially closed, its societal impact endured. Beyond the prison walls, life carried on, a life Shirley was no longer a part of. Her fate was sealed by the court, isolated, restricted, and permanent. And she never once tried to challenge that decision. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means a lot to me, and you can help my channel grow by hitting that like button, dropping a comment, and sharing this video. Your engagement really makes a difference. See you soon.